Have you ever walked into a room full of people, started a conversation with confidence, and then, just a few seconds later, found yourself trapped in an uncomfortable silence? You ask the usual questions, they give a short answer, and suddenly your mind goes completely blank. Your heart starts racing as you desperately search for something, anything, to say next. It feels as though everyone else was born with the natural ability to hold fascinating conversations, while you somehow missed that lesson entirely. If you've ever felt this way, you're far from alone. The truth is, running out of things to say isn't a personality flaw, and it doesn't mean you're boring, shy, or socially awkward. More often than not, it simply means that no one ever taught you the simple skills behind great conversations. The good news is that conversation is not a talent reserved for a lucky few. It is a skill that anyone can learn, practice, and improve. Once you understand a few basic principles, talking to strangers, co-workers, classmates, or even someone you've just met becomes much easier than you ever imagined. For years, I believed I was terrible at talking to people. Every social event felt like a challenge I wasn't prepared for. Whether it was a birthday party, a networking event, or even standing in line waiting for coffee, I constantly worried about saying the wrong thing or not having anything interesting to contribute. I would replay conversations in my head for hours afterward, wondering why I sounded so awkward. But something didn't make sense. Whenever I spent time with close friends or family members, conversation flowed naturally. We laughed, shared stories, debated random topics, and somehow hours passed without anyone struggling to find words. That contradiction made me realize something important. If I could speak comfortably with people I trusted, then my problem wasn't an inability to communicate. My problem was that I didn't understand how conversations actually worked. Instead of treating them like a natural exchange, I treated every interaction like a performance where I had to impress people. That pressure made every conversation feel much harder than it needed to be. Once I recognized this, I started paying close attention to people who always seemed comfortable talking with anyone. These weren't celebrities or motivational speakers. They were ordinary people who somehow made everyone around them feel relaxed. They could meet a complete stranger and within minutes be laughing together like old friends. I became curious about what made them different. Surprisingly, it wasn't because they always had funny stories or clever jokes. They weren't constantly talking about themselves or trying to sound intelligent. In fact, many of them spoke less than everyone else. What they did differently was far simpler. They knew how to create curiosity, how to listen carefully, and how to build connections around shared experiences. Those three habits completely changed the way I looked at conversations, and once I started practicing them, my confidence grew faster than I ever expected. The first habit is learning how to stay curious instead of trying to be impressive. Most conversations die because people stop exploring after the first answer. Imagine someone tells you they spent the weekend hiking. Many people respond with something like, "That's nice," and immediately hit a dead end. But curiosity changes everything. Instead of ending the conversation, you can simply ask where they went, what inspired them to go there, whether it was difficult, who they went with, or what the best part of the experience was. Every answer naturally creates another opportunity to ask something meaningful. Conversation begins to feel less like inventing topics and more like following a path that unfolds one step at a time. Every person carries hundreds of stories, memories, opinions, and experiences. Your questions simply help uncover them. Once you understand this, you'll rarely feel like you've run out of things to say because every answer opens another door waiting to be explored. The second habit is something that sounds almost backwards at first. If you want to become a better conversationalist, spend less time talking and more time listening. This doesn't mean staying silent or becoming passive. It means giving the other person your full attention instead of mentally preparing your next response while they're still speaking. Most people aren't truly listening. They're simply waiting for their chance to jump back into the conversation. As a result, they miss countless opportunities hidden inside what the other person is saying. Real listening allows you to notice emotions, excitement, hesitation, humor, and details that most people completely overlook. Maybe someone casually mentions they recently adopted a puppy, started learning photography, or traveled somewhere they've always dreamed about visiting. Those small details are conversation gold because they reveal what genuinely matters to that person. When people realize you're actually listening instead of simply waiting for your turn to speak, they naturally become more open, more comfortable, and more engaged. Another important lesson is learning to ask questions that invite stories instead of one-word answers. Closed questions often lead to conversations ending before they've even started. Open questions encourage people to think, remember experiences, and express opinions. Instead of asking whether someone enjoyed a vacation, ask what made that trip memorable. Instead of asking if they like their job, ask what they enjoy most about it or what originally inspired them to choose that career. These kinds of questions create space for real conversation because they encourage emotion rather than simple facts. People don't remember conversations because of perfect wording. They remember conversations because someone made them feel comfortable enough to share something meaningful. As conversations continue, another powerful opportunity appears: discovering common ground. Human beings naturally feel connected to people who share similar experiences, interests, or perspectives. Sometimes it's something significant, like working in the same industry or growing up in similar environments. Other times it's surprisingly simple. Maybe you both love traveling, enjoy watching documentaries, struggle with early mornings, own pets, or have favorite foods in common. Even small shared experiences can transform the energy of a conversation. Suddenly, you're no longer searching for topics because both of you are contributing naturally. The discussion becomes more relaxed, more personal, and much more enjoyable. These moments remind us that meaningful conversations aren't built by trying to appear fascinating. They're built by discovering the invisible threads that already connect us. Of course, not every conversation will flow perfectly, and that's completely normal. There will be moments when silence appears unexpectedly. Many people panic during those pauses because they assume silence means failure. In reality, silence is simply part of human interaction. Even close friends sometimes sit quietly together without feeling uncomfortable. Great communicators don't fear silence because they understand it doesn't define the quality of the relationship. Sometimes people are thinking. Sometimes they're processing what was just said. Sometimes they're simply enjoying a brief pause. The more comfortable you become with occasional silence, the less pressure you'll place on yourself, and ironically, the easier conversations become. One of the biggest mistakes people make is believing they must constantly entertain others. They assume every sentence has to be funny, clever, or unforgettable. That belief creates enormous pressure and often makes conversations feel forced. The reality is much simpler. People enjoy talking with those who make them feel understood. They appreciate someone who remembers details, asks thoughtful questions, and responds with genuine curiosity. You don't need the perfect story for every situation. You don't need endless confidence. You simply need authentic interest in the person standing in front of you. When your focus shifts away from proving your value and toward understanding someone else's experience, conversations naturally become more meaningful. Like any other skill, becoming a better conversationalist requires practice. You won't master it after one day, and that's perfectly okay. Every conversation becomes another opportunity to improve. Start small. Ask one extra question. Listen a little more carefully. Notice the details people casually mention. Look for shared interests instead of searching for impressive things to say. Over time, these habits become automatic. What once felt stressful gradually becomes enjoyable, and conversations that once seemed impossible begin to happen effortlessly. At the end of the day, the secret to never running out of things to say has very little to do with speaking. It has everything to do with curiosity, attention, empathy, and connection. Every person you meet has lived a life completely different from yours. They have unique memories, challenges, dreams, passions, and lessons waiting to be shared. When you approach conversations with genuine interest instead of fear, you'll discover that people are often far more interesting than they first appear. And perhaps the greatest realization of all is this: your goal isn't to become the most interesting person in the room. Your goal is to help others feel interesting enough to share their story. When you do that consistently, conversations stop feeling like a challenge and start becoming one of the most rewarding parts of everyday life. If you enjoyed this video and want more practical ideas that can improve your confidence, relationships, and communication skills, be sure to subscribe and join us for more content designed to help you grow, one conversation at a time.